Hi, it's Mia Get Real. It's Monday, and it's 12:07. I didn't go to my meeting today because it takes about 2 hours minimum. Get there, sit there for an hour, clean up, and come back home. If you come straight home, that's the thing. If not, like I did on Saturday, it's at least 3 hours. So I was in I think it was 91. I don't know if it was my phone showed 92 degrees last night. I tried to open the window. There was kids outside, and I was trying to sleep, and I had female issues, and I was just in. I've delivered 2 babies unmedicated. One was posterior, and I went to about 60 births. And even watching people with epidurals screaming in pain because it wasn't working, it wasn't strong enough, or etc. And I'm like thinking, it feels like I'm giving birth. And it's like I was at work all day, and I had to go in the bathroom, and I felt like my body splitting in half. And I just had to just I do customer service, and cooking and sampling and stuff, so I don't want to stand out there in public like gripping onto the edge of a cart for dear life because I'm like dying, like feel like I'm about to split my body open. And I don't know if there's other women that feel that way, and I don't care because it's my life. And I had these young medical students before telling me that there's no way that it's so intense. And the more I'm gonna spray this since I'm already coughing. The more that I clean my body and detox, and I was doing like literal detox. I don't know if I started like the detox, like severe detox in 2004. 2004 is a good date because I started some stuff without knowing in the 90s. And I started some diet change and cleaning up what was being ingested in the 80s. In that 80s, I was in elementary school and middle school. And I clearly remember having a conversation with my mom. And I clearly remember instances where I was not allowed to eat fruit. Even though it was in the fruit bowl, there was like so many rules. And I remember the craving. I remember the taste. And instead, it's like you had to eat, meat or starch or potatoes, and you had to clean your plate. And I didn't know that I had food allergies back then. And the older I got, the more sick I got in my stomach, where I couldn't hold my food down, so I had to run to the bathroom. I was scared I was bulimic, and I think that I wasn't. I was so nauseated from the food that I ate, and it continued into college when I was eating in the dorms. And some, like breakfast and lunch was okay, but dinner I would be sick the same way. And then years later, after I had kids, between the college and having kids, I was so broke I didn't have food. And it was a different type of pain. It was literal hunger and not able to sleep, and nightmares about wanting to eat and not being able to. Your body is literally, like I was pregnant, your body is like starving, near starving, so I had enough nutrients to get through. But it rotted out my teeth, and I'm having some medical issues now that nobody will pay attention to. And some people said there's no way that's happening, you're too young. And the more, when I was still a medical school student, that I went to clinical and saw so many patients and treated them. When you become primary, I think I was primary for almost 2 years, you end up doing the whole case. You just can't. You can call in prescriptions, but you just can't order them. You can order them on the computer. You just have to have the licensed physician. Obviously, you had to have the licensed physician check it off, like in their login. They had to sign off on it. But you just order everything, put together herbal prescriptions and supplements and pharmaceuticals, and then you have to do the dosage and how many refills you want, all that stuff. So doing the primary care as a student and then shifting to doing my own clinic, it's amazing. And then doing volunteer work at the hospital and doing around that, right before that, 2 years of healthcare, delivering babies, and that isn't just catching babies. The amazing thing about that is all of everyone's history. The mom of the baby, the dad of the baby, the grandparents on both sides, and anything from sisters. Mostly they talked about your sister's birth, and then aunties, cousins. Did anyone have this? Did anyone have this? Did anyone have twins? It was, it pulled together like a purse string. It's a collage, the 7 years of being, or 6.5 years, 7 years that I was in classes, doing the face-to-face with the midwifery patients in and out of the hospital. I did both. Brought together everything. In the hospital, it also became very, very high-risk births. In my doula training, which is a separate degree, it's three different certificates I'm naming off, all combined, which I cannot do at this time. I don't know why. I had all high-risk births for doula. Some of the doula stuff I did, so it was, for me, it was a combination of low risk, high risk. I'm a person of extremes. It was not a lot of even ground. There was a little bit of even ground, but it was like either extremely high risk and dangerous, and C-sections and eclampsia, or very, very low risk where, oops, the baby fell out. Or oops, the baby fell out really fast and everyone's driving to your house and you just like, which results in that's a student having to clean up a whole bunch of blood. I didn't want to get to have A and B shots, and I don't remember what they said in medical school. I just didn't want to pay them my money first week of school, and they had the orientation, and I don't remember what they said, but because of my age, I'm older, I don't know if I had them, or I don't know, I have my shot record somewhere. And I know for my kids, they had all of the stuff. They were born close to the turn of the century versus decades and decades ago. I feel bad. I gotta get this stupid shot. It was so painful. And one of them, well, I can't remember, had A, had B. You had to get 2, 1, and 3, and other. And I ended up being like, this sucked. And having to go back 3 times. And you had to do it in a certain, or like a certain time period. And what happened was, because they're like, you don't need A, that's acute, whatever, like, are you going to travel somewhere where people are going to cough on your food in a third world country or developing country? Maybe. Like, how do I do? They're like, you're weird. I'm like, no, I want them both. A and B, because it's like, people would say, oh, that would only cause you some discomfort during a vacation or something. Like, I never go on vacation. If I had the vacation of my lifetime in Mexico or even the U.S., people in the U.S. would have A too, and it's like, why would I want to go a couple weeks violently ill and having my liver all messed up and puking and stuff? Like, no, like, why would I want to date, like, I don't know, like, people would try, like, surprise, like, people think, oh, because I'm a naturopath, I'm not going to do medications approved by the FDA, or that I'm not going to do vaccines. I was just like, one of the biggest things we did for the babies that we delivered, and we saw them into toddlers, one of the biggest things I did, and that was vaccines. Straight up. Vaccines, 3, 2, 1, Ah! And that, because we would want to do them at the same time. Two different people. Yeah, and that, that I didn't have health care when my kids were born as an individual, and when I finally got Medicaid, which I never heard of, and they were born at home, I didn't have any choice. I went and got the vaccines, and my daughter got the Hep B when she was like a couple days old, and it was a horrible reaction to it. And as I went through medical school, that I took every vaccine class I could as an elective, and I took all the midwifery classes and did all the training in and out of the hospital. The out of the hospital was a clinic, and the hospital was in the hospital, biggest hospital. And I don't know, yeah, it's pretty big. I was like, I don't know how big. Okay, it takes up most of the town, it seems like. And I know that if your mom doesn't have Hep B and you're not planning on sharing blood with anyone, it's not necessary to do it the day you're born, and people don't get informed. But at the same time, what I learned as a medical school student was I was like OCD about the vaccine schedule. Basically, as a primary care physician, it doesn't matter my title. It does matter because insurance has been paying me less and people don't take me seriously. As a primary care physician, I have to follow the CDC schedule, especially if I'm going to take insurance. Like if I was doing like trips to the, some kind of retreat center as my clinic, and I only took cash because it's non-covered services. I don't know. I don't do that. I don't know. You still, under that license, you still have to follow the national rules for primary care, or if you're doing specialized, you can't be a specialist, but if you're doing specialized stuff, like people do stuff that I never. You take people that take weekend classes to do the polo therapy. Like I never did stuff like that. Like super alternative. A lot of that stuff is also mainstream now, but back then you had all the classmates spending $1,000 taking classes from those other guys who knew how to do these things. So that's not something I do. And anyways, I have to follow all of the things, and if I decide that somebody needs to stick a daisy on their nightstand as their medicine so they can see it first thing in the morning, then that's not recognized by the FDA. Could it be harmful? Maybe. Yeah, but because it's not like necessarily something the MD would do or that the CDC or the FDA would say is on the paperwork, I just have to do informed consent and tell them you have a plant that's not approved by the FDA that you're going to look at and see a pretty thing when you wake up to help your day out. I'm just making this up, but I'd be like, it's there for joy. Like, do not ingest. Like, keep away from pets and children and choking hazard. Like you would say if they had to buy the daisy, you'll say this is not covered by insurance, and you have your patient sign a piece of paper that says that they understood that it's not a pharmaceutical, it's not approved by FDA, you're not supposed to ingest it, and you're going to have to pay, and you don't have to get it. It's your choice. Or if I offer to you as a convenience, you don't have to get it from me. You can go out to your backyard and get your own, you know what I mean? And you do put all of the dangers and the indication of something. So just, I'm just using this as an example, but people will minimize my education, my degree, and when I'm in certain places, if I'm a volunteer and I'm not just a person off the street, I'm not volunteering based on my education or my skills or my licenses. And if I'm shadowing somebody and they're doing everything, My job is not to be asked to write a prescription for them, or my job's not to, you know, change their IV. When I go, or fill the IV back, when I go to my business and open my office door, then that becomes my job. And I do it the way the law says for me to do it. And if there were no laws, just take it back to anarchy style, then you do it the way that the experts who have been doing this, who the teachers tell you what to do to be safe. And there's one thing that irks me, and I'm trying to be general about this. So in school, there's situations where somebody might they might come in with pain or weakness, and you might think that they're having a heart attack, or that they had one last night or something. And if you're on campus, what you would do, like this, I don't know if this really happens, so I'm just pulling together, because you had to be trained on what to do while you're in class before you deal with a real person. So that's just to make a fictional story. Let's say the patient has cardiovascular disease and they had a family history, and they're coming in left arm pain and lightheadedness and this and this and this, don't want to eat, feel nauseated, and you feel like, oh, is that abnormal heartbeat? If you saw a patient before, was that the same? If you never saw the patient, have they been in this clinic, and you look, at Epic and the charting and see what the physical exam revealed? You are differential diagnosing this patient, and you're saying to yourself, usually work on a team, but you might not sometimes. You're saying to yourself as an individual, because you need to know. For me, if I'm on a team, I'm gonna write down what I think before anyone else speaks, because I want to know what to do when I am working for myself by myself. Like, I don't mind having a group conference, but I run my business alone, and I haven't found anyone smart enough or honest enough to work with. And if I did know somebody, it would be harder for them to understand my intelligence. I always promise myself in real life, if I feel that you need to be referred, or that I'm stuck on your condition, that I refer out ASAP. Like, I tell you that I don't feel comfortable treating this condition. Most of the people that I want to do that with, I'm the last house on the block, and they're like, no, we've dealt with everyone in their brother's clinic and hospital and ER, urgent care, and I'm coming to you because you're the type of person that I now understands and will do something about it. But in those situations, if they're not compliant, then I have to cut the ties. Because why? If they're not compliant and they're in an emergency status, then I'm not going to be able to be responsible if they have harm, and I know how to reduce the risk of the harm, but they're not listening. To me, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's one of my personal things. Then you are going to have to stop calling me and give it 30 days of care. But you're going to say, this is an urgent condition. You're not listening to me. Say I had someone I gave nitroglycerin, or I gave something to, like, even someone an EpiPen. I could have prescribed an EpiPen, and then if they don't go, you're supposed to go to the emergency room after you administer it every time. And I was doing that as a student, and people were like, Like, I was reading the package, whatever the things, like, you had to inform them. And when I go to clinics, they don't inform me. They might not even give me the after visit summary, but I want to say every little thing that you're supposed to say, which is why I don't just work as a physician, because that is all time consuming. But someone is like, I don't want it if it's going to make it that I have to go to the ER every time I use it. Then they're like, I don't want it at all. But you're like, but that would save your life. Like, but I'm not going to call an ambulance or emergency or get a bill. But I'm going to prescribe you this. They're going back and forth. And like, it would be better to say, have it in your purse and it can save your life. And you think about, and you just, first of all, you get the shot and live. And whoever's with you needs to figure out how you're going to go to the hospital. And this was when Obamacare was started. People were either uninsured, being charged outrageous amount of money for insurance and co-pays, or they were a few people that got insured. A few people, like not like people like when my mom was working. My mom and dad were working in the 80s and 90s, so much insurance paid for. Anyways, that's a different story. It would be easy. Some of the people that didn't have to pay for insurance and co-fees, they would have just paid for the healthcare out of pocket. But then things changed. With emergency, they would probably, I don't know what they would do. You can get the catastrophic insurance. It was back to the fictional patient. So you had signs that you have a different diagnosis of myocardial infarction, and you send them down to the lab and run a stat lab, troponins and all that jazz. And then it's the decision: do they drive themselves and they're lightheaded? Then are you gonna call 911? You have 15 minutes to decide. Like, do you want someone else to come get you, or do you want us to call ambulance? We don't want you driving. They can get up and leave and go drive themselves. You can't necessarily always stop them. If something happens the night before, sometimes people have those myocardial infarction where they didn't realize they have it, and then they have imaging and EKGs, and there's abnormality that wasn't there before, and they're like, oh my god, it looks like since the last time I saw you, you had a myocardial infarction, you have tissue damage, and all that healing is going on, and the enzymes, certain enzymes disappear quickly, certain enzymes can only be read after a certain amount of time, blah 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 blah, it's too technical, but you could, let's just say that somebody drove this person, and you'll say the hospital is literally 8 minutes away, and this person is not like convulsing on the floor, but you say we recommend you take an ambulance. If they freak out about they have to pay a copay, like, what are you gonna, like, you write that down. I mean, this is technical. Told that our first, recommendation was ambulance. Like, second recommendation, you take the person there right away. Or something happens in the car, you get backed up in traffic. Either A, you pull over and call an ambulance, or B, because you're gonna have to still now park and find a place, or do concierge at the ER. Blah blah blah. That's stuff technical. Let's get off on a tangent. But wow, if they can get their blood drawn as a stat, and that's the problem, then it's a lab, it's a reading room. But you could actually draw their blood. You could draw their blood in that room. There's changed it after I graduated, where the students would always, for some reason I was working in the lab by myself a lot, and then they stopped allowing me to draw the blood because I was alone. So I was getting all of the right containers and all the stuff and putting it in the bag with the paperwork for the students. And I was like, oh, just bring that right back, and I'll make sure it gets picked up. It was really weird. People say I don't have confidence, but it's like, you give me a job, I'm going to do it. And hopefully the right way. I think it's like when you're not, it's like when I'm in, the thing is, I play like I don't have confidence, and when I'm in a room full of people that are all experts, even if they're complete idiots, I mind my own business, stay in my own corner, and do the job that's assigned to me, and then they all think that I can't do the other jobs, but they all call out sick at the same time, or everyone quits at the same time, and then I'm the only one there, so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this job, I'm going to do her job, I'm going to do her job, I'm going to do his job, I'm going to do this job. The only issue, it's like, oh, where's that key to that lockbox? Like, you just have to dig around a little bit. Like, some things, like, there's a key. Because I'm one of those people that watches people out of the corner of my eye. It's like, be ready. It's like being in a spaceship and everyone passes out. It's like, you need to be ready. You're in space. You got to take over this other guy's job. Your radios might go out. And any automatic computer stuff might go out. And you're going to have to manually run the ship and save you and these guys' lives. So basically, you could draw the blood, and if you're on a team, you can call the hospital and say such and such has these symptoms. We can send you, well, if it's on Epic, you don't have to fax it. You can send the paperwork to the practitioners and have them waiting. You just say, this is why we want to send them, blah blah blah. And I like being able to think of a plan. And I was thinking yesterday, this lady's asking a bunch of questions about, by the way, I got woke up really, really early this morning at 7 something, like that. Lawnmower started going off outside my bedroom window, and I really need to sleep today, because I work all my own businesses, and I go to other people's jobs every day. But then sometimes I work all my businesses and 2 outside jobs. I do double, triple shifts, and it's really scary. I'm so tired. But yeah, I like that. I was walking away yesterday from these flowers, and I was thinking in my mind, I'm kind of like an urgent care center with chronic conditions. Like, it's kind of like I don't know how to say urgent care. Like, this is the problem. It's like, there's stuff that's like, oh my god, you gotta see this person now. Sometimes it's like, I'm doing it between jobs, and I can't do the best job I want, but I'm doing so much more. Like, one appointment with me would probably, like, with some of my clients, would probably be the same amount of time that I've spent with doctors my entire 40-something years of living. Like, I kid you not. Like, some of my appointments are so long. And not talking about childbirth or anything. I didn't have childbirth practitioners, but I have a problem. They have another scent that I smelled. This guy was standing right behind me, and I was wanting to spray it, and I was like, I didn't want him to start coughing. I really had to smell it. It was, no, it wasn't this one. It might have been citrus. I gotta do an order for my clinic. So going back to what I was trained to do, there was some practitioners that something simple as a B12 injection. We always did the blurb under the hand, or I was in my phlebotomy class, and that was a allergy test, and you waited, I forget how many minutes, to see if you had a reaction. And if you didn't, you would do a shot. I don't even think I took the shot. But, I don't know. I should go after it in a car accident, because everyone was, like, making up all these things about my body. Like, people that, I was like, did you just realize that I was in a car that was totaled in a car accident? That was the reason. Like, we're trying to bring up all these, like, conditions that take a long time to develop. I was like, I had no symptoms prior to that. Anyway, that's a different story. So, I end up hearing about a clinic. It had more than one practitioner. It sounds a lot nice and big and beautiful, and waiting room and all this. That's what it sounds like in my mind, because that's what normal people have, right? And somebody had allergic reaction to B12, and they didn't do the blood test. They just do it right under the skin. And I did a lot of B12 injections when I was in clinic. It's like there's some specialties burning off warts, delivering babies, B12 injections. That's where I was, community clinics. It was so cool. I'm gonna tell you this, because everything was in a Rubbermaid container, I had to pull it in and out of the closet every week. I love it. It makes you like MASH, like a med tent. Like everything is. But in a regular place, it's just stored. And it seems almost like unsanitary. And of course, we're like OCD. I was like OCD about sanitizing everything, cavi wipes, and wearing gloves. And you, of course, have to use sharps. Like everything, you just have to follow the guidelines. But you're like a medic. Like, what does the EMT do? What, they have to carry in their ambulance the medications and the IVs and everything in there and stuff, AEDs and all that. And when these people had heard from someone that was like, oh yeah, we didn't really think about it. That was a big deal. We weren't doing too much in our clinic, but we had just set up a crash cart. And I don't know if they had like oxygen tank and up enough. I don't know what they had. And they had to call ambulance, but I think these people had a crash cart. And my story was kind of like vague. Plus, it would keep anything anonymous. But since that day was probably sometime in 2014, 2015, I thought to myself, I'm not going to do anything that's going to cause allergic reaction. And I used to do IV therapy, and it wasn't like I go to hospitals and for a burst and for volunteer work, and I see the IV and the medications inserted into the IV. But for IV therapy lab, oh my god, you would mix like 12 ingredients, and if you have one without some other ones, like you could kill somebody. It's like that diathermy. Like there's some things where you're just like absolutely no no's, and so my mind's like, don't even do that in practice. But dude, don't do it in practice. You freaking train, like you overtrain in these areas. Like some of these patients you would have for at least 12 weeks. And like you would have like people come in and out, oh, I need diethylamine, but some people you had every single week get the same exact thing. And 12 weeks is not a lot of time, but it's a lot of repetition in very close amount of time. And that's like if you have 5 clinic shifts plus you're doing childbirthing plus you're shadowing at the hospital, that's equivalent to just about doing at least a shift a day and going to class. So going to class for like 6 hours, going into clinics for 4 hours, and then delivering births or babies for anywhere from 5 to 40 hours at a time. So there was just that. I just am so grateful. It's like you train in these certain things, you should get the equipment to do it. And because you're able to do it and you've done it a lot, just like blood draws. A lot of people didn't want to do blood. A lot of people didn't want to do adjustments. They put me on the physical medicine shift like for a whole year until I said, like, did you guys do that on purpose? And then I found out, I was like, someone want to check off? I got a thing that needs to be fixed. You want to check off full requirements? And they're like, no way. Like 8 people in a class would be like, no way, I hate it. I don't understand, I hate it. Really? I spent like 4 to 5 years doing classes from chiropractors to learn this stuff. And I was like, this is one of my, besides massage and hydrotherapy, that's one of the things where you can walk out feeling better immediately without drugs. Anyways, and you're like putting the body back together. Somebody mentioned something about this chronic condition they had, and someone said, oh, can we try this? And they always decline. They're like, yeah, right, it's woo. And they were talking to a chiropractor. And the chiropractor did it. And this patient was like, and I met her, she was, I think, on a different clinic, like homeopathy. She's like, oh my god, I didn't believe it for years, and when they finally did it, they cured this chronic condition because of this alignment of the spine. I was like, I know that's why it works. Like, I don't want to waste my time and money on something that's not going to work or that's woo. I used to question homeopathy after I was using it for a while, and then I didn't use it, and I didn't question, only question what you call it, once. I didn't question acupuncture. I just didn't go to one of my appointments. I was really sick, and I was like, "Dude, you're really sick. You should have gone. That's when you should have gone." Papers need to go in here. This is ridiculous. This is really important. I need to put that in my office. I gotta put it in the car. Oh, it's still in the bag. The patient lived, whatever that other story is, and when you're in school and you pay your fees and the patient pays and you get donations and stuff, you end up with a lot of medications, you end up with oxygen tanks, you end up with epinephrine, you end up with surgery equipment, you have a surgery table, surgery light, you have the autoclave, you have all of that stuff, you have the adjustment chairs, the manipulation chairs, you have the massage rooms. If I say diathermy, you have all the saunas and all that stuff was available out of school, and a lot of it was available at the community clinics, which were down at churches or other public buildings, community centers. And what happens is I go to practice, and I was buying stuff like gloves and disposable gyne equipment because I was like, I don't have an autoclave and all this. And this lady told me, this doctor who had been in business for 15 years, like, you don't need to buy stuff. You're going to work with somebody else who's going to have this stuff. You shouldn't be wasting your money buying this stuff. But I was, like, getting student discounts on some of it, like my massage table, which is in my office. And I was getting other things when I set up accounts with certain companies and all this stuff. And she's like, don't buy anything. So I was hesitating on buying anything. And I also had a relative who promised to help me open the business, which I could. I have a huge to buy list, and part of the list for general medicine, some of it would overlap to midwifery, which I thought I would be doing right now. I thought I'd be doing that in 2015 or 2016. I thought I would be a midwife, and I ended up a vendor in the grocery store, which also turned me into that also led to the Pizza Hut job. And sometimes I regret not getting certain stuff. Now you understand that some of the stuff I got, the medicines had pork, so my patient clientele will not do pork. So I don't know. I'll just throw some of that stuff away. I used to be able to take the supplement. I would only buy stuff that I could take myself. And then being raw and cleansing my body so much, I stopped being able to take any supplement. And there's little tiny and there's other things, and you're like, it's not that much. It's like vegan, it's like this, like that. And I'm like, dude, last time I took any supplement, I tried several times. One time I was really sick. I messed up on a test on one occasion. So it was just the last few times I tried. It would be insane to do that again. It's not worth it to me to be up for nights deliriously sick over toilet. It's not worth it. It's not worth that amount of sickness. It wasn't like, oh, I burped and it was reflux and then I was fine. And then the next night I took it and I burped. It's like, it got worse each time. And I said, my body's rejecting this. And I don't know, maybe there's some other stuff that's not disclosed, or maybe it's just if you do raw food, and who knows how processed the supplements and stuff are, even if they're liquid. And some things you can get as a supplement, and it's a food product, but it's like so compact, so powerful. Like certain waters used to be called supplement because they had natural fluoride in them, and you end up. I had a Russian water. I think I drink it. You end up like having where you're like, let's see what it works in. You end up where you're having like some of the stuff that's in the fridge or in the freezer, or it's a water that has like warnings on them, and you're like, okay, that is more in a natural state, and it's not cooked or heated or mixed with chemicals, or like caffeine-free green tea. I took some of that. I found that I had acted really weird, and all this stuff. I actually have some because I got it as. There's not many incentives that I can have at the food pantry. They give you the stuff that's like supposedly nutritionally plant, like nutritionally bacon, like if you were volunteering. I was like, people are yelling at me like, why are you taking donuts and cupcakes home? Like they're yelling at me and my son. These old people, all they get to incentive. It's like the incentive basket only has cookies, cupcakes, and chips and candy in it. Like if I could take a banana or a bottle of water and like a bag of potatoes or like 2 potatoes, I would, but we are not allowed to take that stuff. Like they're like, well, you should have taken a scone or something instead. And I was like, yeah, and my kids don't eat that. Like let the clients have that. Like someone else, like they would yell at me, and I'm like, do you not realize like they're not giving us like a can of pasta sauce and or soup in our incentive unless it's like on the shelf that stuff from like 6 years ago. It was like all dented in. You're like rusted. Like no, I don't want that either. Or some bouillon cubes or something like it's like these kids will nibble on this for a week, even though it's expired or expires today, or they'll put it in the freezer and they'll celebrate an achievement or a birthday because we're not eating this every day. And if that wasn't in the incentive box, we wouldn't have eaten it at all. But we would hardly ever take the incentive. So once in a while, the kids will have a victory, finish their term at school, and my son thinks it's a nice thing to share with his big sister. I think like how many of these people grew up with their kids having a cake and ice cream for their birthdays or for graduation or for a wedding, and they're yelling at me because my kid took a stale plate of cupcakes home to his sister. Like I said, occasionally I do have bottles of water in the incentive place, and I will take that, but like they have Funyuns. Like, like yell at the people who put that as the volunteer incentive. Like tell them if they put a bag of apples in there, I would have taken a couple apples. Like literally, like I would have. Like I look at them or like some strawberries that have to last 2 days. Or like are these really gonna last 2 days? Footage is. Oh, this wasn't supposed to be this long. Um, the sad part about it is. Okay, yeah, I know CPR first aid. I know how to use the AED at a provider level. CPR first aid. I used to have a child, infant, and adult. I don't know. It's hard when you do provider level because it's like you end up having everything. But for doula thing, like when I was in, oh yeah, we do child because we have the adult model size and the child model size because you have a baby slap on the back. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's all. So I was trying to do a doula appointment because the Pizza Hut job, when that new manager, the manager that hired me, the hours were up here, and it was very flexible with my other job. And then when they changed management, it was no longer flexible with my other job, and the hours went down. So I'm going to start going out of town to work, and I was crying about I'm going to have to leave my kids, but I'm already gone. But if I leave my kids to work out of town, then I'll still be able to pay my overpriced rent. It's subsidized way over what it's supposed to be. Like when they did the review at the time when I lost my job, my rent literally mathematically should be zero. Do I think I should pay more than zero right now? Yes, but when they calculated it, but they did instead they charged $900. So because I had a zero income, it was really bad. It was really bad that they calculated that and threatened me. Anyways, it's a different story. Somebody white doesn't understand why I'm stuck with all these jobs, get low pay, why my clinic doesn't earn the maximum amount of money, and why I can't get out of slums and projects. And when I was in college before, if we went to look at houses, I went with the white roommate. When we came out here and I bought my house out back east, I was with my white husband at the time. When I left him and started going shopping, going to appointments, like if me and him are working, they gave us a whole bunch of food stamps. And then when I left him and had no more job, then everything got cut. To go to the office, like one of the guys next to me, I was a single mom with 2 kids, and he was a single dad with 2 kids. He got so much help from the welfare office, so much. Like there are these programs. I go, okay, what I hear from you is that there's job, there's this incentive, blah blah blah. And I went and looked them up and researched them, and I started going to these classes. They're like, if you are in this program, these classes are mandatory. So I was and then they're like, at the end, you could get help with your resume or get help doing job interview, something like that. I was like, I need help. I need all the help I get. So what I would do is I'd sign up for the classes and never get the reward at the end or the help that I needed. And I would voluntarily sign up. It wasn't like, oh, you're living in a shelter and you're a single parent, you have to do jobs or work program or this or that. It's like I was doing what I needed to do, but I added the extra stuff on, and I still didn't ever get help. It sucks so bad. I just spent time away from my kids and had them in this dingy daycare that should have been, everyone should have gone to jail for 20 plus years, literally. And I wanted to do anything I could to stay off the streets and to put food in their mouths. And I was denied help. I was denied help. And I begged for help, and then these people had the audacity to tell their supervisors that I was non-compliant. And I was like, no, I must take all these extra classes that you don't require. Like, it basically it would be easier. Like, the neighbors were sitting at home on welfare watching TV. They all had cable. They all had nice cell phones. The kids had, and this back in the early 2000s, and they all had transportation and all of this medical stuff their kids got, and all these extra groups they got free stuff. And I was just like, they're like, I don't know, why do they need you? It's like, some of these social workers are black. They're not even nice to their own kind. They're nicer to me than they are to you. I was like, because I'm black. That's why they're nice. And it's not. It's like like white people would come up to me and wonder. They're like, you're the most honest, hardworking, intelligent person in this complex. Why are they treating you so poorly? I don't know, but I need to advocate. Somebody speak up for me. Somebody write an anonymous letter saying this is not fair. Tell their supervisors what you told me. Tell their supervisors that I'm not non-compliant, over-compliant. But then I had a social worker call me an overachiever, and she kept calling me every week. I saw her. She kept calling me overachiever. I was like, what? I never heard that before. I was like, what the heck is that? I'm like, I'm doing God's will, like, and I'm doing a really bad job of it. To me, I was a failure and a slacker, and just had health issues, with severe poverty and abuse. Like, what really wears your body out. And then I ended up with that car accident years later after I used during poverty did anything I could, from free clinics, waiting in line at food pantries to just be as healthy as I could. And I thought I was going to beat this, clean up my body from the past and all the junk food I ate and all that weird behavior and smoking. And then I thought I would be able to clean up myself. And then the accident happened, and I had musculoskeletal and spinal injuries and brain injuries. And I was like, I'm not immortal. Like, and in my heart, during prayer and meditation, my higher powers, it would have been even worse than partial paralysis and nuanced set of migraines and all this other neurological symptoms, musculoskeletal symptoms like TMJ disorder, all that stuff that developed. I felt during prayer meditation would be worse if I didn't do that internal cleansing and all of the building up my nutrients, and all that jazz. It's sad to say it. It's sad for me to say it to you, because during prayer and meditation, asking God to help me to heal and being told to get on disability, and then other people that were practitioners would go on disability or partial disability and close down their clinics. And I had some talks with the primary care on that. It was so sad to think I'm just getting started. I just took my board exams when the accident happened, so I was waiting for the results. I was just about to start my career, and then my doctor saying, you're done with everything. And nobody outside my immediate family helped me. My kids and my pets. No one. That was even worse than what that lady got away with, and her insurance company got away with, not paying for my health care despite all of my abnormal labs. One sad part about my life is sacrificing to help others and knowing disparities and knowing poverty with births, and even trying to give people sliding scale and certain discounts for do the work, and they get treated like garbage, and then all of a sudden having where the people are discriminating against me, like Medicaid local people that I have to communicate with that see me and know that I'm black. Their discrimination, it just, all this stuff hurts. And I read some stuff, cultural sensitive doula courses. They had some book reports, and some of the books I read from black granny midwives, and then in certain books of descendants of slaves, and different stuff about lynching in the South. And I couldn't put these books down. And I go, this is the world we live in. And white people ask me, why can't you live in my neighborhood? Why can't you this, that, and the other? And it's like, look at your skin. Like, they think that there's something wrong with me. They think that I must not disclose I'm a criminal, or that I must, like, maybe I don't really have the degree. Like, I had all my ducks in a row, except my skin color is not the same skin color as you. That's what it is. And if I were in a black community, they taunted me for my speech in my education level, the way I dress, and my natural black hair, and the way I raised my kids, and the fact that when they see my kids, they're mixed, and I got taunted. And a couple people from some of these groups that I was a part of, there was a few nice people, but a couple of people from out of town felt like, oh, this town is snobby for the black community. Like, if you didn't go out to high school here in their hood, they will still treat you like the outsider, no matter how much you love them and bring them into your house and this and this and this, donate to the cause and all this. And I heard someone say that they've been here for decades and still are outsiders. And I found that really interesting from the black community. For me, as a human, I just want to be community. And I had a trans medical practitioner tell me that there's no way I'm going to make it in the Pacific Northwest. So I got to go to Atlanta. And I feel like this hippie cowgirl going to Atlanta will probably be way worse than me being here. Now, what happens here is somebody finds out that I know something for real and that I can do stuff, and then they tell someone. It's not because of an ad that, I overheard some young guys talk about their insurance and this new practitioner and how shiny their office and how fancy and updated it was, and they were afraid that they were getting subpar health care. Like, I don't care about all the glitz and glam. I want someone who knows something. I overheard their conversation, and I was working there as a person, as a job where it requires no education and no skills besides reading, which is a big thing in my neighborhood. There's not a lot of people who read, and I ended up being heartbroken I got discriminated against because my clinic is small, because that's all I could afford. I can't even afford it. I was going to take out loans just to have a clinic for 6 months because the money fell through from my relative. And the one thing that I'm trying to promise myself now is to put together my crash cart and or something like a bag and a mask for baby when you get out of baby birth. A simple thing. If it costs $300, let's just say, I don't know how much it costs. That should be in a cart. And you can do them off to mouth, okay, but you know, you could. You don't have to have this, but it's like that one simple thing you want on your person. It's the lifesaver. Because those also connect to oxygen, which your air oxygen from your mouth would not be sufficient for multiple, but you also did oxygen on mothers. So that's another thing that I feel a little guilty. It's like, so some of my so-called low self-esteem, low self-confidence, when I was doing the right thing as a child, that people tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm trying to retrain my brain that don't feel guilty. Oh, and these black people were mad. All people were mad because I had this really big degree. I'm like, go get a big degree. I'm not stopping you. This is not something. I wasn't born to a super wealthy family or into royalty like the princes Harry and William. I wasn't born, with a trust fund. Like those people are so-called lucky, or they are so-called blessed with what they have, or a loving family who actually takes care of their children, not abuse them. Those people are lucky. But when it's something where you can fill out a couple papers and get online and sign up for some classes, that's not something that's not attainable by everyone. And there's no reason for you to be jealous of someone else's hard work. You don't want my debt. You don't want to have send your kids to daycare all those times and not even be able to make a living off of it, and thinking that you're at least going to make minimum wage as a physician. That my neighbor complained about my job being easy. And I'm like, I work 7 days a week, and they're talk about sitting in their break room and stuff. I'm like, we don't even have break rooms at my jobs. Like, you could I go stand outside and put my drink down on a trash can. In my one job, I can't even stand outside. I have to. Like, there's no break room. There's nowhere to sit. I don't sit on toilet seats if I have to. If I was sick yesterday, I had to put a whole bunch of toilet paper and stuff on the seat, and then that's like my break. But it's not. It stinks, and it's not. And the floor is wet. It's not. It's not relaxing, and I don't even get to drink water. It's not like I can, check my email and sip on it. It's like get me out of here as fast as I can. Before I felt sick already, I was like, I don't want to have to puke. It's like this person's right, and this person makes more money than I do, and they don't have the education, and they get days off, and they think that I have it easy, and I said it's not worth complaining about. Their job does not sound too easy, but they also were complaining about people that didn't have to work, who were tired and from the heat and all this child caring, and I know that's not easy either. But there's some freedom in being able to go to the store and being able to certain things that you can do when you don't have a schedule, and there's certain things you can do when your kids are old enough to get themselves dressed for school. Like especially these people have husbands. You could go out of town with your cousins for the weekend and hang out. You could go to the hospital to your friend's birth or your sister's birth or something. And in this culture, they have cousins and sisters and uncles and all these people. So you also have a support network, a loving group. If something happens, you have a baby, you have people coming over, bringing you food and water, and helping you with your kids and stuff. So everyone is different. I understand that certain people wish they knew how to read, so they had more options in their jobs. I understand that too. So I just actually, some of the people that don't know how to read, that have to work factory and stuff, I actually said, they're tired. They're not. They're, their husbands are jerks like mine. I said, you know what? They are giving me, like, they already do anything to keep their kids fed and housed, and they give me inspiration. It's not easy. I said that they could do it. I'm going to do it. And I swallow my pride and think that I'm going to work and be listening to heartbeats and taking people's pulses and just, prescribing medications all day and getting paid my worth. I had to swallow my pride and be humble and have humility, and that at this time the universe has not provided that as my main source of income. And in a way, it's very, very sad because I just fought tooth and nail and studied like a mad woman. And I don't even know. It's like a slap in the face, the reality check of it. And I think one of the hardest things is having had done pre-medicine before the children were born, and then having told myself that when I was married and working part-time, I said, well, it's okay, I'll just wait till the kids are older to go back to med school. Because we were making plenty of money with both of us working, just enough money, but we weren't like looking at eviction or anything. Like, I feel like I'm always $1 for being evicted. I get really scared. But what happens to me is I end up saying that I was homeless, never got a penny of child support, and I had said, oh, don't worry, I'll still wait to go to medical school. The kids were just 3 and 4, and I just dropped this thing. And I said, don't worry, just wait. Just work a regular job. I couldn't get one for 2-3 years till someone at the old church had brothers owed me a daycare. Nobody could work that job because people didn't have a good license to drive kids around a van. And so I had a good license, and I was able to pass the background check for the job itself. The job one was easier, and then the driving was hard for people because they didn't have good records. And I ended up making 10 cents more than minimum wage. And minimum wage went up, and they gave me the same as minimum wage. I felt like I got a pay cut. And that job, I just got on daycare, but if I didn't, the daycare for 2 kids would have been more than the monthly pay. So that isn't, I would have to live in a car and get a credit card and live off of, and give everything from the job to daycare center plus a credit card to pay the balance, and then that would have been shut off in 3 months. I just did the math so many times and said, it doesn't add up. So for me, I have 14 years anniversary celebration for life change. Lots of things happened 14 years ago. And in my life, 2016 was a big year, promising not to be around toxic and abusive people. And that year brought liberation and another layer of prison. It's like breaking free from bondage from abusive people. And every time you break through a lock or climb over a fence or figure out how to get through the razor wire, there's another layer. That's the first time this come to me. There's another layer, another layer of stuff. And it's so sickening. It's like, well, this stop. And just like medical school, never give up. If you give up, you don't know if you will succeed. If you're killed while you're doing it, then you die doing what in your heart you felt was right. With medical school, I said, I had a plan how to pay the loans off in 10 years or less. I always want to pay everything off 2 or 3 years minimum early. And if there's a long loan, like a car loan or something, I never had a mortgage, I always want to pay it off. I want to pay it off half. I want to throw down as much And sometimes you still get a 7-year loan, but you paid more for down payment, so then your payments are lower, and then you still pay even more. Anyways, that's a different story. I had a plan, and now I'm on plan Z of how to get out of debt and how to pay my rent, and people keep questioning it, and I think a lot of it is to do with race. If I come from, me and this young lady were talking, she's older than me, but this young lady, and I don't think people realize that only a few years before me and her were born, the segregation ended in the South. And even in the North, my family that came from the South lived in the North, they were still in segregation. In Ohio, there were still blacks only living amongst blacks, going to school with blacks, working amongst blacks. Like, it's still segregated to this day where my relatives are. It's still segregated. It's still segregated. And some stuff that was a little bit integrated in the 80s, I've gone back to visit relatives that had some, that maybe they were the only black family. Now there's all the white flight happened, and they all left and built their own gated communities. And then the other gated communities are all black. One family member lives in this fancy neighborhood. Black people that have the smallest house. And this fancy neighborhood was all white people. It was well-groomed. People were highly educated or self-educated, at least educated. Considering they were in segregation, they were as much educated as they could get at the time when you had to go to black-only school, colleges, and be bused to other schools for high school. It was interesting as it was like when Queen Latifah and Bringing Down the House, that's that pool party Steve Martin on the character house. And the racist lady lives across the street, and you see all these blacks in these cars walking around in bikini, and you know, that happened outside my relative's house. There's a pool party going on, and before when I was a kid, everyone in the neighborhood was white, and then when there was a black guy living next door, I went there a couple of times, and all I could see was this guy looking at me over the fence, and it creeped the heck out of me. Now, what you looking at? And it's like, sometimes I felt like black men feel like they own black women. I have people, even younger than me, come up to me and be like, you need to smile. You need to be more professional. I was like, excuse me, are you my boss? I was like, these people come up to me and they don't know me. And I'm like, excuse me, sir. I don't want to call it. I was like, get out of my face. Like, you don't own me. It's like they want to come into my face and start acting like I'm their slave. And like, I don't know where this comes from. And it's disrespectful in my opinion. There's some people that come up to you and they say something funny and you laugh. That to me is more humane and cordial than to get into someone's face and it's like them slanting words. And anyways, this party was like, that was really loud, and so like people were having a good time. All these cars parked up and down the street, we walk around, and wow, it's like in the movies and that urban environment. And I thought I never lived in an urban environment of American, and most urban blacks would tell me how much they hated me because the way I speak, and the way I look, and the way I dress, and my education level. They tell me how much they hate me. And these were all social workers, black social workers, told me how much they hated me. And white people say that I'm being discriminatory towards other blacks because that's the only experience I've had 100% of my life. And there was one person who lives out in the suburbs who told me about one of my jobs that I have. And that person is black. And there's another person that told me about another job, and that person's black. But both those people I don't see or hear from anymore, and they left the job, and they had some issues and all this. But it's like, for the period they didn't have issues, they seemed like they were in a more diverse upbringing, or at least diverse after upbringing. They grew up in the hood, and I appreciated them seeing me as a human. But because they were black, I think that they were able to look past skin color and see an individual with a heart and a brain, and not just say, like, I've been applying for jobs, and I applied for a job at the grocery store, and they're basically telling me that I'm not going to be able to do customer service to rich white people. And they said the same thing when I was in medical school. And I said to someone yesterday, do you not realize that you all white people brought us here as slaves, and we lived up in y'all house, and we done nursed your babies? Like, your great-grandmama could have been nursed by one of my great-grandmamas, and a wet nurse, and that we got the horses ready, that we, when slavery was abolished, we still worked for y'all. One of my relatives there wasn't necessarily white, but it was a Jewish, still Caucasian skin color. Rich people. My mom grew up with millionaires. She went to school. She lived in the house with these, as grandma was one of the cooks, and multiple cooks, multiple servants. My mom lived in the house and went to school with the kids in that same neighborhood. And my mom's skin was light, so she went to school with millionaire, rich white kids. And then my other family was so poor, and they worked as servants during segregation, working getting coins thrown at them. They can't even hand it to you. Say, so rude. I hate using the word boy. If my dad was a kid, you go, boy. No, they throw money at them. They throw nickels at them. And everyone scrambles and, well, pick them up. And then doing wait staff and segregation. Uncle Homer was 104 when he died. His mom, at least his grandma, would have been a slave. I think, right? And if he died in the 80s. And I knew these people, and I'm sure they heard some stories, and that nobody from that same generation or one under it will never talk about slaves. Like, you guys had to have some stories, or maybe they did. Like some Chinese people or something that won't teach their kid Chinese because they want them to be completely Americanized. But think of the help they could do with translation and going back to the old country and keeping the language alive, because they'd be bilingual at least. But a lot of people, they won't. And you hear this, I heard this in this book, Let's Stay Together by J.J. Murray, about the not teaching the kid Italian so that the parents could have phone conversations. My friend was half Filipino, and I was like, she's always talking to her mom, and I can't understand her. I was like, she didn't teach you that. But you also hear culturally that some people want their kids to be Americanized and to fit in and not be looked at like freaks. I'm like, well, I'm an American, and I'm always looked at like a freak, which is weird when the Europeans have raped the land and raped the women, and some of the African people have similar oppression, but different. Similar evil and, corruption, corruption. Land is naked, and they don't have the diamonds and the gold that their land produced. Someone else drilled it and kicked everyone who lived there out. It's like the Indians, everyone kicked you out. Anyway, this is political, but yeah, it's like what these poor white people, or these people, like, they work in the grocery store for 30 years and they're making $21, $30 an hour, or maybe, I don't know, and they're telling me that I don't know how to work. I'm not going to be hired because I'm not going to work with you. I was like, I've been done living in this stupid neighborhood since 2004, and I grew up with rich educated Polish people that own land, property, RVs, and boats, and these are the people that I hung out with when I didn't have to be in the house. And their kids and grandkids and nephews, and we still, because of my mom's mannerisms, had to learn how to be treating another human like another human. But when the family roots come from the South, you got a lot more, yes, ma'am. Like, people get mad out here and I told my kids that, ma'am, they didn't like that. Some of those liberal people felt like they were being called old. And I was like, my kid's like 6, you are old to them. But it's like we were living If you were a slave owner and you and your wife are in the bed and the baby's in there and the baby cries and I'm a house slave wet nurse, I'm gonna be my bedroom or my closet is gonna be right outside your bedroom, and I'm gonna run in and get your kid and sit in a rocking chair, and, in the middle of the night and change the diaper. Like, I'm gonna be living amongst you. And I'm oppressed. I'm poor because I'm oppressed. I'm poor because I'm not allowed an income, same as yours. I'm poor because I'm doing cotton picking and you're taking the money after you sell the cotton. That's why I'm poor, because you're not giving me the money for my work, and it's still like that. And I think that some white people don't understand. They think, probably 100% of white people think that I don't have a good job because I have something wrong with me, or that I have a criminal record or something. I was like, no. On paper, they'll be like, oh yeah, she sounds great. And the only people that want to take me, or people that wanted to use me, are charging a whole bunch of money for me to work in their clinics and giving me a small percentage. If they weren't breaking the law, I would have joined their clinics to get started, and I wouldn't have to pay rent. But you would end up working a lot and paying even more. You would be paying $1,000 a month to them, and my rent's not even that high. So that somehow God had the biggest thing is I would have tried that. People were doing 60-40. They were getting 40, and the clinic was getting 60 from all their patients. That's crazy. The biggest thing is these people were breaking the law, and I refuse to work with them. I refuse to work under them. See if you know. Sometimes you don't know people are illegal. And anyways, but what's sad is knowing that it was a few years before I was born when segregation ended, and it didn't change anything. Someone just wrote a law. It didn't change the fact that the same relatives I have that were bused to school were the same, or in all black colleges were the same. They lived a neighborhood across from the same age people who were white, and they were raised like these people's grandparents or parents were slaves, and these white people's grandparents or parents were slave owners. So, and if these people were racist or they treated blacks like animals, like then blacks would act like animals because they were put in a box. I'm not saying they act like animals, but then you don't want to cause problems and have the police arrest you for no reason. So you're kind of like cower and not use your brain even though you're smart. And if you use your brain, somebody comes and steals your ideas and gets rich off of it, right? You shut up about it and pretend you're stupid. Oh, yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And you end up like these people still pass down, even if they don't speak an intelligent conversation, all of the ideas generation. And that was only 4 generations ago of slavery. They pass down the same ideas if they're racist, or if they want to treat someone less than human, or if they think that there's a spot in this musical that's highly prestigious, and the black kid wins or the Hispanic kid wins, this white man's gonna be like, oh no, he didn't. Like, they're gonna be like, that is my child's spot. My child has the perfect hair, the perfect eye color, the perfect freckles and skin color. Like, then they're gonna feel privileged because somebody dark got the spot who maybe had gotten passed up before because of their skin color, and then the judges actually looked at their talent and their stage presence instead of their skin color. And that, in my lifetime, it has been less than 0.5% that somebody's looked at me and as a whole and not just the skin color. And the people are like, how do you know this? You're making stuff up. Because they tell you to your face that they're not going to accept you because of who you are. They tell you to your face. If this person were to go out and do black skin and hands, they would see. They would see what happens and how they're treated. And how they can sit in a jewelry counter for an hour and not be waited on. While between customers, white customers, the 2 or 3 people who work in the jewelry place would be talking to each other, help the white customer talk to each other, and an hour go by and this person will be waiting patiently try not to be angry black woman making a scene and being like, excuse me, is there a bell that I need to ring? Is there a number I need to take? This happens to me. I used a credit card at the store up the street and they called security on me for buying like notebook paper and a pair of shoes, underwear for my kid's school. Using my own credit card that had my ID. And you swipe, you don't need, back then you swipe, you didn't even have to hand it to them to compare their signature. They called security on me. And think of the people in the line behind me were all white. And this happened to me in Walmart too. This was a friend of mine. Said me in Walmart always being searched, and white people say, see, black people are dangerous. They always causing trouble. There was a black family where the women were talking and the kids were blocking the aisle, and these old white people were shaking. They're like, black people. And I was trying to get through too. I had stuff to do. I had to work. And I couldn't get through. And I was going to let, because I was a vendor in the store, I was going to let the old people come through first. But the kids started pushing and punching each other. And I just heard one of the ladies start yelling and yank the kid out of there. And I was just like, we got to do better. But you're an individual, not a skin color. You are an individual. People will look at that saying, this is why we don't want blacks in our neighborhood. But I can't get mad because that's an individual family. You know, I had some of these kids come up. Some I might have been the same family. And just snatch food from my cart and not say thank you. Or, you know, occasionally, but then there's a lot of white women that will do that, and their kid will be like, may I please? Like, their kid will come up, like the woman was snatching and just like not even look at me. And if you start trying to hand them a coupon, and the kid will come up, excuse me, may I please have this thing? Oh yes, honey, I have two choices. What would you like? Oh, I want the chocolate one. Oh, okay. And they're like, oh, thank you. This is good. Would you like a coupon? Oh, yes. And you're just like, I was like, you kid need to teach your mama some manners.